My beloved, I walked beside you from the first quiet stir of morning light, though you didn't feel me there. I watched you move with quiet resolve, carrying a soul that felt strangely distant from the rhythm of the world around you. You weren't loud today. You didn't ask for much. You never really do. You held yourself together because that's what you've learned to do. Hold everything while remaining unseen. You showed up like you always do. You were present in every room, attentive in every conversation, generous in every task. But somewhere inside, you were still asking the same question you've carried for years. Does anyone really see me? Not the version you package for others. Not the smile you place over tired eyes. You wonder if anyone truly sees you, the real you, the worn out and wondering one, the soft, quiet spirit that sometimes aches for acknowledgement and finds none. I saw you when you poured yourself into work that no one thanked you for, when you gave attention to others but received little in return, when your gestures of care went unnoticed and you told yourself it didn't matter. But it did. I watched you stand in the back of the room not because you lacked presence, but because you've grown used to believing the front wasn't for you. And when you lowered your voice in a group so you wouldn't interrupt, I heard what you didn't say. You think invisibility is harmless, that it's noble, that shrinking back is strength. But child, I never called you to disappear. There's nothing holy about vanishing so others can feel more comfortable. The weight you carry from being overlooked, don't minimize it. That ache is not your imagination. It's the soul's cry for visibility, for connection, for restoration. You've been living like your absence wouldn't echo, like your silence wouldn't be missed. But I feel it. I feel the tired sighs you breathe when no one's looking. I feel the disappointment you don't name. I hear the private questions that rise when the room grows quiet again. If I stopped reaching, would anyone notice? If I didn't show up, would it even matter? Let me answer you now, not in abstraction, but in truth. You mattered today. You were not invisible, not to me. Even when others walked past you, even when the message you sent was left unanswered, even when you gave your best and received silence in return, I saw it, I honored it, I held it. You see, I don't require noise to notice you. You don't have to be celebrated to be cherished. You were never meant to earn your place by giving until you disappear. I didn't form you in the shadows to keep you hidden forever. I created you in light, and that light has not gone out. Even if you feel dim tonight, you've told yourself not to need much. You've trained your heart to survive on crumbs of attention. But that's not how I love you. I don't ration my gaze. I don't offer slivers of affection. My love isn't diluted or delayed. It sees everything, especially the parts of you that others overlook, especially the efforts that felt wasted, especially the times you stayed kind when you were tired of being ignored. There was a moment today, I saw it, when your eyes paused on someone laughing, fully received, fully embraced, and something inside you whispered, I used to be like that. You didn't say it aloud, but I heard it. That ache of remembering how it felt to be chosen, to be noticed without effort, to be a source of joy in someone's eyes. You still long for it. That longing is not weakness. It's evidence that you were made for connection. But the world taught you to expect little, to play it safe, to protect yourself by staying out of the way. That's not my way. I am not distant. I don't look past you. I never miss the quiet ones, the ones who hold up everyone else, the ones who carry dignity without applause. I crown them. I sit beside them. I whisper when others are shouting. I come close when others look away. And when the day ended, and no one asked how you were really doing, I did. When you closed the door and leaned against the wall for a breath of silence, I was already there. You are not forgotten in the spaces between tasks. You're not unseen in the rooms where your name isn't spoken. I am the one who counts the hairs on your head. I am the one who records your tears, even the ones you hold back. I am the one who calls you chosen, even when no one calls at all. You didn't disappear today. You just felt the weight of being unacknowledged, and I understand why that hurts. I'm not asking you to pretend. I'm asking you to bring that ache to me, not as a burden, but as part of your offering. Your heart is never too much for me. Your need to be seen is not a weakness. It's a reflection of how I designed you. So sit here with me tonight. Lay down the invisible performance. You don't need to explain. You don't need to impress. Let me be the one who sees you fully, quietly, reverently. I will not look away. Not when you're weary, not when you're quiet, not when you're unsure if your presence even matters. You are not invisible today. Your name never left my thoughts. Your presence never faded in my gaze. And even now, as you sit in the hush of evening, I am still here, whispering back everything the world forgot to say. You are seen. You are enough. You are mine. You've been living in tension for a long time, between what you hope for and what you're willing to expect. Somewhere along the line, you stopped expecting to be seen, not because you stopped wanting it, but because it hurt too much when the desire went unmet. So instead of reaching, you folded inward. Instead of asking, you learned to adjust. You told yourself it was safer that way. But I never created you for emotional scarcity. You weren't designed to ration your needs like resources that run out if shared too freely. I didn't give you a heart so you could learn to make it invisible. I gave it to you so you could live open, so you could receive, so you could connect. And I know that openness hasn't always been safe for you. I know how often the things you offered were ignored or mishandled. I know how being honest sometimes led to being silenced, or worse, shamed. And so without making a formal decision, you started disappearing piece by piece. You stopped sharing the deep thoughts. You stopped bringing your full self into the room. You became agreeable, gentle, soft-spoken. Not because that's who you truly are, but because it felt easier than carrying the weight of disappointment again. You were never trying to be dishonest. You were trying to survive in a world that didn't always make room for your depth. But now, my child, I want to offer you something different. Room again. Space again. Visibility without pressure, safety without silence. You see, when you made yourself smaller to protect others' comfort, you accidentally buried parts of yourself I intended to shine. You stopped expecting to be pursued because too many people passed you by. You began to believe your emotions were a burden, your presence an afterthought, your voice something best kept for quieter moments. But none of those beliefs came from me. I've never asked you to apologize for your needs. I've never labeled you too much or too quiet or too intense. Those words came from human mouths, but they didn't come from heaven. I call you precious, intentional, exactly right. You're not difficult to love. You're not inconvenient to see. You're not invisible by nature. You were made in my image, and I am the God who sees. Do you remember when Hagar fled into the wilderness, unseen and discarded? She thought no one knew where she was. She thought she didn't matter anymore. But I came to her in that dry and lonely place. I called her by name. I reminded her she wasn't alone, and she gave me the name that still echoes through eternity, the God who sees me. That name still belongs to me, and it still belongs to you. You have wildernesses in your heart too, the places you run to when no one seems to notice, the emotional corners where you sit in silence because it's easier than hoping for response. But I know where those places are. I know how to find you there, and I never show up with rebuke. I arrive with tenderness, with restoration, with a voice that says, I see you. And not just the parts of you you've polished for public view. I see the weariness, the restraint, the longing that you keep dressed in humility. I see the deep capacity for love you carry, even when it feels unreturned. I see how often you put others first, not because you're trying to be virtuous, but because you're afraid of what might happen if you don't. You've been taught that disappearing is safer than disappointment. But beloved, that is not safety. That is starvation. You were meant to be nourished in community. You were meant to be received. You were meant to be visible, not just to me, but to others. And while I know people have failed you, I have not. I have not missed one gesture of kindness, one prayer whispered in exhaustion, one tear swallowed so you wouldn't make others uncomfortable. I have counted them all. I have held them close. And I promise you this: nothing given in quiet love is ever wasted in my kingdom. But I want to go deeper now, not to expose you, but to set you free. There is a version of you that exists behind the practiced smile, behind the patient tone, behind the calm posture. And that version of you still wants to be chosen, still wants to be invited, still hopes to be seen without having to perform. I want to bring that version to the surface again. You've believed a lie. That love comes only when you ask for nothing. That to be truly spiritual means to be invisible. That the holiest thing you can do is disappear quietly so others can shine. But I never asked that of you. I didn't call you to martyrdom by silence. I called you to reflection, to reflect my nature, and my nature does not vanish. There is room for your voice. There is purpose in your presence. There is power in your gentle strength. And I am unlearning you from the survival patterns that taught you to be invisible. I am breaking agreements you made in pain. I'm opening the space around you so your soul can breathe again. You don't have to hide anymore. Not with me. Not from me. And tonight, I want you to know again, you were not invisible today. You were not lost in the shuffle of other people's needs. You were not passed over by heaven. You were the one I followed all day long. You were the one I lingered near. You are the one I loved with every breath in your lungs. You're the one I love still, fully, freely, visibly. There's a kind of tiredness that doesn't live in your muscles or your bones. It sits deep in your chest, heavy like rain clouds no one else can see. It's the kind of fatigue that comes not from doing too much, but from holding back too long, from staying small, from always choosing the quiet option, from watching life pass through your hands while wondering if anyone notices the way you keep showing up with a soul that wants to be found. You've learned to live with that quiet ache. You carry it like a folded note in your pocket, never fully opened, never fully forgotten. It hums beneath your everyday actions. It pulses beneath your kindness. It travels with you through the laughter that feels just a little too distant, through conversations that brush the surface, but never reach your center. That ache has a voice, even when you don't let it speak. And I hear it. You've told yourself it's not a big deal, that others have it worse, that invisibility isn't the same as pain. But I'm not measuring your experience against someone else's. I'm not asking you to justify your ache. I'm asking you to bring it to me. Because no matter how skillfully you hide it, I already know it's there. I know what it's like to be among people and still feel unknown. I know what it's like to give and wonder if the giving matters. I know what it's like to be close in proximity and distant in spirit. You've trained yourself to dismiss your own needs, to call it humility, to call it maturity, but I call it unseen grief. And grief, when it goes unnamed, doesn't vanish. It buries itself. It shapes the way you look at yourself, the way you interpret silence, the way you step into rooms. That grief has been forming the way you hold your shoulders, the way you soften your voice, the way you say, "It's fine," when you know it's not. And I need you to understand something tender but true. Your heart was not meant to live buried beneath false peace. I gave you a voice so you could be known. I gave you emotion so you could be understood. I gave you presence so you could be received. When you begin to live as though your visibility is optional, something sacred starts to shut down in you. And you can feel it. The emotional disconnection, the sense that your name no longer echoes in people's thoughts, the shrinking of your spiritual posture. It's not laziness. It's not selfishness. It's a soul that's slowly losing its sense of belonging. You see, invisibility isn't just about being ignored. It's about becoming disconnected from your own reflection. It's about standing in front of a mirror and not recognizing the way you've bent yourself to survive. It's about hearing others affirm your strength, while you quietly grieve the fact that no one seems to notice your weariness. It's about being celebrated for your resilience, when what you really need is someone to say, "You shouldn't have had to be that strong in the first place." I'm saying that to you now. You shouldn't have had to carry so much without help. You shouldn't have had to lower your voice to be accepted. You shouldn't have had to trade honesty for harmony. That's not what love demands. That's not what I require. I've watched the slow erosion of your inner world, the way your joy dulled, your trust faded, your energy faded into a rhythm of giving without receiving. And while the world may not see that decline, I do. I always have. There was a time when your eyes lit up more easily, when your laugh wasn't measured, when you shared without pre-editing every sentence. I remember. And I miss that version of you, not because it was better, but because it was freer. And the freedom still belongs to you. It hasn't disappeared. It's waiting under the dust of exhaustion, waiting beneath the layers of silence. It just needs room again. It needs breath again. And I'm here to give it back to you. You are not invisible to me, but I want more than that. I want you to stop being invisible to yourself. When you look in the mirror, I want you to see more than a tired body and a practiced smile. I want you to see the person I shaped with intention. I want you to recognize the spark I planted in you long before anyone told you it was too bright, too soft, too much. I want you to begin noticing your own presence again, not as something to manage, but as something sacred. You're not defined by how others respond to you. Their silence does not diminish your radiance. Their failure to notice does not unwrite what I have spoken over you since the beginning. You are mine. You are worthy. You are known. Let me be your witness when no one else looks. Let me be your voice when yours trembles. Let me remind you again and again that your worth is not negotiable, not seasonal, not dependent on how loudly you're celebrated. You are not invisible today. You were brave in small ways. You chose softness when you could have hardened. You gave even when you were empty. You existed fully, quietly, faithfully. And I noticed. I always do. There's something you don't always recognize about yourself. Something I've never stopped seeing. Even in all the quiet, all the fading, all the emotional stepping aside, there's still a flicker in you. A part that refuses to go numb. A small, persistent light that keeps hoping someone will look again, lean in again, ask deeper questions. That flicker is not weakness. That's faith, even if you wouldn't call it that. It's the part of you I've protected through every disappointment. The part I've breathed over again and again when you felt like giving up. You think of hope as something loud and inspiring, but sometimes it's the way you keep waking up, keep showing up, keep offering pieces of yourself even when no one thanks you for them. Sometimes hope is the whisper that says, "Don't disappear. Not yet." I want you to know I've been building something in you in the silence. Healing doesn't always feel like sudden light. Often it starts in shadows, where the roots grow deepest. There are things I've been restoring, that you haven't even noticed yet. The weight you've carried for years, it's beginning to loosen. The words you never could say out loud, they're rising in you with new strength. The old roles that used to feel necessary, they're starting to fall off. And slowly your soul is remembering its shape. I don't need you to force anything. I don't need you to pretend you're further along than you are. Healing doesn't begin in striving. It begins in noticing, in slowing down long enough to realize that something is stirring again, that something sacred is waking up under the weariness. You've been measuring yourself by what others see. You've been wondering, if no one celebrates my change, is it even real? But I want to tell you this plainly. Your becoming is not dependent on being witnessed by others. It's holy in itself. When you begin to believe that your visibility is not a condition for growth, your spirit starts to rise differently. You stop living to be noticed and start living to be whole. That's where I'm leading you. Wholeness, integrity, a presence that doesn't require applause to stand tall. Today, even if no one stopped to ask how you were really doing, I did. I looked not just at your performance, but your posture. I paid attention to the pause between your words. I felt the moment you looked up at the ceiling, praying without words. You didn't ask for anything specific. You just wanted to know that I was there. I was. I still am. And here's what I want you to hear now, clearly and calmly. You are being remade, even in your quietness. I am unbinding you from years of unspoken agreements. Agreements like, it's safer to be silent. It's holier to be unnoticed. It's better not to need. I never signed those contracts. I never asked you to erase yourself. I asked you to reflect me, and I am not invisible. The more you allow me to fill the spaces you've hidden, the more your presence will expand, not in ego, not in dominance, but in peace. There's a gravity to someone who knows they are seen by heaven. There's a quiet authority that flows from those who no longer wait for permission to exist. That's what I'm forming in you. You won't always be the one who's overlooked, but even if you are, you'll stop believing it says something about your worth. You'll walk into rooms knowing you belong, not because others make space, but because I already did. You'll begin to move with an ease you haven't felt in years. You won't need to scan faces for signs of welcome. You'll carry welcome inside you. And here's what else will begin to shift: your voice. You'll speak more freely, not to dominate, but to release. You'll write, not wondering if it matters, but knowing it does. You'll laugh without watching yourself from the outside. You'll cry and not apologize for it. You'll rest, not as a reward, but as a right. You'll stop editing your soul to fit within what others expect. The favor over your life isn't something I hand out. When you perform well, it flows from who you are, who I made you to be before any of this world shaped your habits. And I'm restoring that original design now. Every layer that was added in fear is being peeled back in love. Every mask you wore in survival is falling in my presence. Every empty belief that told you you don't matter unless you're needed is dissolving in the light of truth. You're not someone who needs to be validated to be valuable. You're not someone who has to fade into the background to be considered humble. You're not someone whose softness disqualifies you from leadership, from belonging, from being chosen. You are someone I see, always fully, tenderly. You are not invisible today. Even in your most silent moments, I felt the steady beat of your becoming, and I will keep speaking to that part of you, even when you forget how to hear it, even when you retreat again. I will come find you. I always do. Tonight I want you to notice your breath, not because it's dramatic or profound, but because it's still here, because you're still here. That in itself is holy. After everything you carried today, every invisible weight, every moment of tension, every suppressed emotion. You still have breath, and that breath matters. There's nothing small about surviving days like this, days when your presence feels optional, when your name isn't spoken, when you hold space for everyone else but walk through your own heart like a stranger. That kind of quiet endurance takes more energy than most people realize. It's why you feel so heavy tonight. Not physically, but emotionally. It's not exhaustion from activity. It's depletion from invisibility. I want you to stop blaming yourself for how tired you are. You didn't get here because you're weak. You got here because you've been living under the weight of too many unspoken expectations, too many emotional accommodations, too much inner silence. And I never asked you to hold all of that alone. You've become the safe space for others, the one who understands, the one who absorbs what others unload. But somewhere along the way, you stopped making space for yourself. You learned how to comfort without receiving comfort. You learned how to listen without expecting to be heard. And slowly your own needs got quieter, not because they disappeared, but because you told yourself they were less urgent. But here's what I need you to remember now. Urgency does not determine importance. Just because something isn't loud doesn't mean it's not vital. Just because your ache doesn't scream doesn't mean it's not sacred. I care about the parts of you that are tired of holding back. I care about your desire to feel seen, even if it feels inconvenient. I care about the part of you that quietly asks, "Can I stop being the strong one now?" Yes, you can. You don't need permission from the world to rest. You only need to remember that I never called you to burn out in order to be faithful. You don't have to stay emotionally low maintenance to be loved. That's not holiness. That's hiding, and I am calling you out. Not harshly, but tenderly. I'm inviting you back into a life where your soul gets to breathe again. Let's talk about rhythm, because you've been moving without one. Your heart is tired, not just because it's been hurt, but because it's been rushed. You've adjusted yourself to everyone else's needs, everyone else's timing, everyone else's weight. And now you don't even know what your own voice sounds like when it's not responding to someone else's. But I remember it, and I want you to hear it again. It starts here. Slow down. Make quiet sacred. Not the kind of quiet where you disappear, but the kind where you return to yourself. Say less if you need to. Step back if you must. Let others manage their own emotions. You don't have to be the emotional stabilizer of every room you enter. That was never your job. You don't have to explain your boundaries to people who are comfortable with your silence. You don't have to apologize for asking to be heard. You don't have to keep paying with your energy for the comfort of people who didn't ask how you were doing. Your peace is not a resource to be endlessly distributed. Your presence is not a convenience. It's a gift. And your body, yes, the one you sometimes forget to honor, it's been trying to speak to you through tension, through fatigue, through the sighs you let out without realizing. It's not just stress. It's your heart trying to say, something's out of alignment. And I'm not angry with you for it. I'm here to realign you. Your healing will begin in the smallest of places, in the way you breathe, in how you hold your shoulders, in how you speak your own name in love, in the moments where you stop mid-thought and ask yourself, what do I actually want right now? What do I actually feel? These are not selfish questions. These are sacred inquiries that open space for me to speak within you. I'm not asking you to perform your healing. I'm asking you to receive it, one breath at a time, one release at a time, one gentle no at a time. Let this night be the beginning of a return, not to who you used to be, but to who you are. Beneath the noise, beneath the habit of vanishing. You are not a background character in other people's stories. You are not a placeholder for someone else's priorities. You are a child of the light. You are my reflection on earth, and I don't dim the ones I delight in. You are not invisible today, not to me, not to your own spirit, not truly. Something in you is rising again, even if it's quiet, even if it's slow. I can feel it. So can you. You've been many things to many people. You've learned how to become what was needed, what was easy, what was least disruptive. Over time, that adaptability became your safety. You adjusted your tone, your posture, your presence to fit into whatever the moment required. You did it so well, sometimes you forgot you were doing it. And now, when you're alone, there's a stillness that feels unfamiliar because there's no one left to adjust for. Just you, just me. And I know that silence can feel unnerving. When the noise of the day fades and the expectations fall away, you're left with someone you're still learning how to recognize. The version of you that isn't filtered for survival. The one that's soft, intuitive, longing, powerful in a way that doesn't shout. That version never left. It just got quiet while you played roles you didn't even choose. You've been the strong one for so long. The one who keeps peace. The one who smiles through discomfort. The one who listens, but rarely speaks first. You told yourself you were doing it out of love, and sometimes you were. But sometimes you did it out of fear. Fear of being misunderstood. Fear of taking up too much space. Fear of being too much or not enough. But I want to tell you something sacred tonight. You are not the role you've had to play. You are not the silence you've kept. You are not the mask you wore to survive the spaces that couldn't hold your truth. You are my beloved, not my useful one, not my agreeable one, simply, fully, irrevocably mine. You don't need to carry the weight of being the one who holds it all together. That's not your identity. That's a survival position. And I understand why you stepped into it. I was there when you learned that being needed was safer than being vulnerable. I saw when you realized that offering help got you closer to people than asking for it ever did. But I never required that of you. I never needed you to disappear to be holy. Tonight, I want to restore what's been hidden beneath your coping. I want to return to you what invisibility stole. Your honesty, your boldness, your joy, your soul's rightful space. You are not invisible. You've just been camouflaged in expectations. Let me strip them away gently, one by one, until you feel the weight lift and the breath return to your body. You don't have to be the calm one if inside you feel waves. You don't have to be the forgiving one while your heart silently breaks. You don't have to be the helpful one to earn belonging. You already belong. You belong before you did a single thing. You belong before they praised your patience, before they relied on your silence, before they leaned on your strength without ever asking how much it cost you. And now I'm reclaiming what you thought was lost forever, the laughter you used to release without fear, the opinions you used to hold with confidence, the dreams you stopped admitting out loud, the friendships you longed for but never found, the kind of love that sees you without needing you to shrink first. It's not too late to be visible again, not just to others, but to yourself. The truth is, you never stopped being who I made you to be. You only learned how to hide it for safety. But I've always seen the true you beneath the layers. The playful spirit, the fiercely loyal heart, the quiet wisdom, the sacred hunger for depth, the deep desire to be known without being dissected. All of it. It's still here. I still see it. And now, I want you to see it too. You're not broken. You're just buried, and I am unearthing you with tenderness. There is nothing selfish about coming back to yourself. There is nothing dishonorable about wanting to be seen. I made you to be a reflection of me, and I do not hide. I do not shrink. I do not disappear when it's uncomfortable. I stay. I speak. I shine. And so can you. You don't have to keep being the one everyone leans on. You're allowed to lean too. You don't have to keep smiling through confusion. You're allowed to ask questions. You don't have to keep editing your presence for approval. You're allowed to take up space. Real space. Emotional space. Spiritual space. And I will stand with you as you do. You are not invisible today. You've never been. You've simply been waiting for someone to say, "I see you," and you don't have to vanish to be loved. I'm saying it now, not just once, but forever. Let me show you a new way of living, not the way you've learned from years of quiet adaptation, not the way of disappearing in the name of peace, not the way of earning love through usefulness. I want to teach you the rhythm of visibility, real, sustained, unshakable presence. A presence that doesn't depend on being invited, but on being rooted. You don't have to wait for others to give you permission to take up space. I've already given it. I designed you with intention, not as a placeholder or background figure, but as a reflection of my image. And my image is never faint. My presence is never optional. When I formed you, I built you with layers of grace, thoughtfulness, sensitivity, and strength. All of them are meant to be seen, not hidden behind service or silence or emotional self-erasure. So this is what I want you to begin doing. Slowly, deliberately. Return to yourself. Start by noticing when you shrink, when your voice lowers without reason, when your thoughts stop halfway out of fear, they'll be misunderstood. When you talk yourself out of expressing emotion because you're unsure it'll be received. These moments matter. They are the places where your visibility begins to slip. I don't say this to shame you, but to remind you that each of those moments is a gate, a chance to choose presence instead of withdrawal. Choose it. Not with force, not with defensiveness, just with gentle courage, the kind that says, "I exist, and I don't have to vanish to be safe." It's in small shifts that your heart will begin to awaken again. A deeper breath when you feel the urge to rush past your feelings. A hand rested on your own chest when the ache returns. A sentence you finish even if your voice trembles. These are spiritual movements. They are holy. They are seen by me as acts of worship. Let yourself be guided by my rhythm, not the urgency of others. I'm not asking you to do more. I'm asking you to be more present, to feel without judgment, to speak without self-editing, to walk without rushing to meet others' emotional expectations. You don't have to absorb everything others drop at your feet. You're not the emotional landfill for those who haven't learned to carry their own weight. You're allowed to have limits. You're allowed to say, "That's too heavy for me right now." You're allowed to protect your peace without feeling guilty. This is part of your spiritual maturity, not self-denial, but self-stewardship. I'm not calling you to endless sacrifice. I'm calling you to alignment. And alignment means that your inner life and outer life begin to speak the same language again. That what you carry inside is honored in the space around you. That you no longer live in tension between how you feel and what you perform. When you say yes, mean it. When you say no, trust it. When you feel overlooked, come to me first. Not to be reassured with cliches, but to be reminded that your presence never stops mattering. Not for a moment. Not even when you feel irrelevant or forgotten or emotionally muted. I want to teach you to rest. Not as recovery from being used up, but as a way of living. You were never meant to earn your way to stillness. Stillness is your birthright. It's where you hear me clearest. It's where I pour into you, so you don't have to keep pouring from an empty vessel. So tonight, before you think about tomorrow's tasks or obligations, I want you to pause, not just physically, but spiritually. Let your breath slow. Let your expectations soften. Let the walls come down. Ask me what part of you needs to be seen again. I'll answer. Not always in loud revelations, but in the gentle nudge that reminds you. You don't have to keep hiding. You are not invisible today, and if you listen closely, your spirit is already responding. not because I forced it, but because truth always finds its echo in the soul. And right now, truth is calling you back. Not to action, but to awareness. You are seen. You are safe. You are becoming whole. You may not have noticed, but the shift has already begun. Quietly, without fanfare, without announcement, you've been waiting for something loud, something undeniable, some proof that you're changing. But transformation rarely shouts. It whispers, it breathes. It breaks the silence with subtle rearrangements. The way you paused before saying yes today, that was me. The fact that you let yourself sit in stillness without rushing to be productive, that was healing. The moment you said, I don't need to explain this feeling away, and simply allowed it to exist, that was growth. These aren't small things. They are visible evidence of invisible restoration. You used to think change had to be dramatic to be real. You imagined bold steps, public declarations, big emotional turning points. And yes, I work in those ways too, but more often, I work in the sacred rhythm of daily faithfulness. A new thought pattern, a gentler inner voice, a different response to the same pain. That's how the fruit begins to show. And now it's showing. Not for applause, not for attention, but because the soil of your soul is being watered again. You're no longer trying to bloom for someone else's approval. You're beginning to bloom simply because I'm here, and you're rooted again in my gaze. There is favor on your presence, not because of what you do, but because of who you are when you are no longer hiding. You carry peace in rooms now where you used to carry pressure. You bring calm, not because you suppress your needs, but because you're learning how to live honest. There's a shift in your energy, and it's not performance, it's alignment. People will start to notice even if they don't have language for it. They'll feel it in your tone, in your pace, in your no's and your yeses, in the way you take up space without apology. They'll say, something's different, and they won't realize it's not that you've changed into someone else. It's that you've finally returned to who you were always meant to be. And what's more, the places that once drained you will begin to shift too. Not all at once, and not because you forced them, but because your presence is no longer shaped by fear. When you show up as your true self, the atmosphere adjusts. It has to. Because my spirit moves in truth. Where truth is honored, peace flows. Your relationships will feel different. Some lighter, some clearer, some may even fall away. Not every connection will survive your reappearance. But you don't need to grieve what couldn't stay. Anything that requires your invisibility is not part of your healing. And I will never ask you to choose between being loved and being whole. I'm not just restoring your soul. I'm making room around your life to hold what's coming next. Favor without striving. Visibility without fear. Connection without compromise. The things you thought were only for others, deep friendship, joyful belonging, love that sees and stays, these are not beyond you. They are waiting on the other side of your return. And this is just the beginning. You will begin to feel joy where there used to be numbness. You'll start to notice beauty in moments you used to rush past. Your laughter will rise more easily, not forced, not staged, just free. That's what happens when the weight of invisibility lifts. Light comes in, not just around you, but through you. Your life is beginning to reflect what I've always known about you. You were never meant to be hidden. Even when you felt unseen, I was writing your story in bold, deliberate strokes. Even when your voice shook, I was strengthening its echo. Even when your presence went unnoticed by others, I was setting the table for your return. So, don't be surprised when doors open gently in front of you, when favor flows toward you without you fighting for it, when people ask for your voice in places where you used to feel invisible. This is not manipulation. This is not a trick. This is alignment. This is fruit. This is me. You are not invisible today, you're not invisible now, and soon the world will start to notice what I've seen all along, not because you demanded attention, but because you finally stopped hiding. You don't have to carry yourself alone anymore. I know that for so long, you've learned to be your own anchor. When no one followed up, you followed through. When no one reached for you, you reached inward. And when your soul cried out in silence, you turned that silence into structure, into discipline, into resilience, into emotional containment. But I want you to know now, that's no longer necessary, because I am here, not just as comfort, but as rhythm. You weren't meant to walk by memory of my presence. You were meant to walk in step with it, not glancing back, not hoping I'll show up when things collapse, but moving with me breath by breath, hour by hour, heart by heart. That's how I see you, not occasionally, constantly. That's how I want to teach you to live again. Let me be your rhythm now. Let my spirit guide not only your prayers, but your pacing. You've lived at the speed of fear for too long. Fear of being forgotten. Fear of being unnecessary. Fear of being too much or not enough. That pace exhausts you. It makes you disappear inside your own life. But my pace restores. It breathes. It lets you notice. It gives room for your soul to catch up to your body. When the world rushes you to perform, pause. When your thoughts spiral into old patterns, I need to be useful, I need to be agreeable, I need to stay small, stop and listen. My spirit is whispering a new rhythm underneath those lies. One that sounds like rest, one that sounds like gentleness, one that sounds like you are already enough. You've been told to stay strong, but I never asked you to stay invisible. Strength in my kingdom doesn't look like hiding pain to protect others. It looks like walking with me through it, honestly. Let me guide you through the places you used to avoid, the feelings you stuffed down, the parts of you that seem too raw to carry into prayer. I am not overwhelmed by your truth. I am drawn to it. Even your silence can be a conversation with me. When you don't have the words, I still move. When your soul only groans inwardly, I translate it into language heaven understands. That's how close I am. That's how deeply I know you. You don't need perfect articulation to be heard. You don't need eloquence to be held. You just need to stay close. Start asking me simple things again. Not just big life questions, but the small ones too. How should I move through this moment, Lord? Is this place safe for my heart? Am I disappearing here, or am I free? I will respond. I always do. I'm not silent because I'm distant. I'm patient because I'm near. My answers aren't always loud, but they are always timely, always personal, always true. And if you forget again, if you slip back into the habit of minimizing yourself, of scanning rooms for safety before sharing your heart, don't panic. Just return. That's the power of the Spirit in you. You can return at any moment. Not with shame, but with breath, with awareness, with openness. That's all I require. Let the Spirit be your breath, not your final resort. Don't treat me as a place you collapse into at the end of exhaustion. Treat me as the one who walks beside you before the fatigue begins. I want to be your first rhythm, not your emergency escape. I want to be the voice you recognize, not the one you rediscover only when everything else has failed. And you'll start to notice, when you walk like this, when you listen like this, when you breathe like this, your sense of invisibility begins to fade, not because everyone else finally sees you, but because you finally do. Because you're no longer watching your life from the outside. You're present, anchored, alive again. I never wanted you to live fragmented. I never asked you to trade connection for functionality. I never taught you to disappear so that others could be comfortable. That wasn't me. But I am the one teaching you how to walk in step with the life I dreamed for you. A life where presence is not a performance. A life where visibility isn't conditional. A life where peace is not a reward. It's your atmosphere. You are not invisible today because my spirit walked with you, because I held you in every room where no one called your name, because I whispered when your own voice felt too tired to speak. You don't have to keep proving your worth. Just walk with me. Just let me lead you into visibility. Not for others' applause, but for your own restoration. You made it to this moment, and that matters. Not because today was flawless, not because you smiled the whole way through, but because you didn't disappear. Not truly. Even when the silence pressed in, even when no one asked how you were really doing, even when you convinced yourself that your presence might not matter, you stayed. And I saw you. Tonight I want you to feel the weight of that truth. Not heavy, but real. Let it settle inside you that you were present in your own story today, even when it felt like the story was happening around you. You felt things you did not name. You carried burdens you didn't speak of. You offered kindness no one acknowledged. And still, you stayed soft. That's not small. That's holy. You didn't demand to be seen, but you still longed for it. And that longing, it's not something to be ashamed of. It's a seed I placed inside you from the beginning. To be known, to be witnessed, to be loved without needing to prove you deserve it. You've called it weakness. I call it divine design, and I'm watering that seed now. You've done enough disappearing, enough minimizing, enough apologizing for your own existence. I want you to stand in the quiet power of your presence, not because it's louder now, but because it's truer. You're becoming visible again, and not just to others, to yourself. That is the deeper healing. That is where freedom begins. You don't need to be the most expressive, the most articulate, or the most celebrated to matter. You just need to be honest. Honest with me, honest with yourself, and honest about what you need. That kind of honesty is not selfish, it's sacred. It opens the door for connection, not only with me, but with others who were made to love the real you, not the edited version. And you don't have to get it right every time. There will be moments when you'll feel the urge to shrink again, to stay silent, to nod instead of speak. That's okay. But now you'll notice it. Now you'll have language for it. Now you'll know how to return to yourself. And when you do, I'll be right there, every single time. You are not an interruption. You are not an afterthought. You are not excessive or invisible or too much. You are a voice, a presence, a reflection of glory. You are worthy of love that does not flinch, of connection that does not require camouflage, of relationships that do not ask you to shrink. You've thought that invisibility was your fate, that you were just the quiet one, the helper, the background. But I'm breaking that narrative now. I'm speaking a new name over you, a name that sounds like light, like substance, like belonging. Not because you earned it, but because you were born of me, and I never create to erase. So walk lighter now, not because the world changed overnight, but because you did. You remembered that I see you. You remembered that invisibility is not your inheritance. You remembered that your softness is not weakness. It's evidence that your soul is alive. That is your victory. And as you prepare to rest, not just your body but your spirit, let me say it one last time so your heart can echo it back in the dark. You are not invisible today. You are not invisible now. You will never be invisible to me. Amen. If these words helped you breathe again, don't keep them quiet. Someone else is still holding their breath, wondering if they matter too. Let this reminder reach them. Share it, like you were shared with.